To Blender Station Live. In this episode, we're gonna do a little bit of experiment using Blender and ChatGPT AI to create a 3D pyramid. Okay, so let's start. At first, I asked the ChatGPT to write a Blender Python that stack a box to look like a pyramid. Okay, this is the first one. So I just copy the Blender Python, gonna paste it into Blender, into the text editor. So this is the Python code. I'll delete everything in the 3D scenes. Just gonna generate it. So as you can see, by default, it's actually creating a 2D pyramid. Let's investigate this a little bit. So you can actually change the row, the number of boxes per row, and then the number of row, and you can see the result. So it's pretty good in that area, but we probably want to have like a 3D pyramid. Okay, so you can change the value and see what's going on. And so it seems like, okay, it's doing its thing, but we want it to be 3D. So this one is pretty good. It's good, pretty good, but I want a 2D pyramid. Just submit feedback for ChatGPT developers. This one is pretty good. Like above, but make a 2D pyramid stack. Let's just copy this code. So I ran it earlier today. I want to do it in real time, but you know, it could be slow sometimes. Okay, this one is a little bit funky. I wonder why it's giving a result that looks like more like a triangle. I'm super curious. I'm just changing the number. This one is actually quite interesting. Yeah. It's not a pyramid, but it's kind of interesting. We might be able to create like a tunnel if we keep running this script. Yeah. I don't know. It's quite interesting. But it's not doing what I want. We want a pyramid, so let's try this code. Okay, this one is doing the same thing. I asked the AI create a grid of cube, stack it up higher and higher. Maybe I should have said like make it smaller and smaller as it goes higher. So it's a stack of pyramid if you like doing a Lego. This one is actually stacking the cube in a, yeah, you know, like just stacking the cube and stack of cube, 10 stack of cube. Interestingly enough, this might be it's just like a stack of cube in the grid. So I just keep requesting. Doesn't look like a pyramid. And this one, let's take a look. This one is interesting. It's starting to make like a stairs instead of pyramid, but a pyramid is actually a little bit like stairs as well. So maybe, I mean, this is pretty good, right? We can actually start to think of, okay, a pyramid is like a stack of block, but it's like a stair as well. It's just if it keeps going on, it might be like a pyramid. That's what I thought, but doesn't like more like stair. Please give me 3D pyramid. This one, I think, this one might actually do the job. Yeah, indeed, this one actually the closest to pyramid. Although it looks like a half pyramid, so if we like duplicate it and then RZ180, make it close together. So we make like a tiny pyramid, okay? And each one of them actually have a block. I can join them. So it's kind of like a pyramid. It's not perfect in that area, but we can modify this. I don't know, it's in many different ways. If I hit tab, separate by loose part, maybe uh, set origin to geometry, and then F3, and then random transform. Kind of trying to think how we can randomize this to make it more like a pyramid. Maybe rotate it, but not too much. Scale, yeah, scale, I don't know. Yeah, more or less like that. And we cannot just do this, but the idea is pretty much there. I think I did ask again. It's probably still doing similar thing. We actually, okay, this one is actually kind of doing it. It's just maybe a little bit far, so it's becoming like that. We actually, instead of, we try and test out the pyramid, right, each time. Okay, this one is good. Kind of building the upside down pyramid. Might be wondering why. And it might actually doing it this time. We have to dig inside the code, and I believe like the AI could be like smart enough to actually explain what's going on. Yeah, it's still, although it's still building like only half of the pyramid, but it's actually really pretty close. Each one of them is like a grid of cube, and it's making it smaller and smaller. Maybe if we say, okay, 15 by 15, and the row is like 8 or 6. Yeah, this one is actually pretty close. Maybe it's not tall enough. We have to make it more like square. Same drill, It's not perfect, but still. So I join it using Command J and then F3. We need to go to hit edit mode, hit tab, and then randomized. Actually, separate by loose part. Go back to object mode. Set origin by geometry. Set origin to geometry. Transform random. Randomize transform. Yep. You can scale it even because it's like a, I don't know, it's up to you. Because maybe each stone size is not exactly the same. But yeah, I don't know. It's pretty close. I mean, you cannot just scale it and make the top part like that. But if you look from far away, the top part is actually like looking like a real pyramid because of the detail. Okay, we can just keep making smaller and smaller and stack it. From the top view, it should look like more like a cube. I don't know. Yeah, okay. But you got the idea. It's a good idea to save each of the script. Save as pyramid stack. Yeah, if you try to read the code, some parts, some of the functions, this is like a loop, right? And then there's like math calculations. This part you might not understand, and it's a good idea to actually dig inside the code. Let me think. If we actually try to recreate it using geometry nodes, we might think of it differently. But this is, I think, pretty close to make like a half of the pyramid. But there's something going on there that makes the cube stacks smaller and smaller. If I were to do it using geometry nodes, one way to do it is to use like a cylinder maybe. So I'm kind of guessing. If a cylinder with 4 vertices, and if you transform elements, scale the top part, make it smaller, right? It's like a pyramid, but each part of the side need to be like a stack of cube. This one, you probably need to transform the rotations 45 degrees. We can control the radius, the depth. This is one way to do it, I guess. Volume to mesh. Okay, mesh to volume. Volume to distribute points on the volume, inside the volume. Okay. Great. Perhaps there are many other ways that's a little bit more efficient, but I think this is pretty good. Yeah, I think just the spacing and maybe the threshold, and then point to instance on points. Okay, instance of boxes. Still kind of need to adjust the size of the box. Pyramid. Not exact, but it's pretty close. And instance. Translate instances. That's actually pretty handy. Randomize. Random value. Vector plugin. The idea is pretty much there. It's not perfect, but it's pretty much like a stack of pyramid. There's a better one. There's definitely a better one, a better way to do this. You can perhaps instead of distribute points in volume. I like the distribute points in volume. Distribute points on faces also might work. And then you just do the same thing. So this is the points. Volume, okay. It doesn't like volume, of course. It needs to be proper surface. this one with this stack. It's only on the outside, and if we randomize, just randomize a little bit. Yeah, maybe. Or another way is to actually stack like a grid of plane, and then you just make it the plane smaller and smaller, just like a cylinder as well. I think I showed you before. So the grid needs to be the size getting smaller and smaller, but you also distribute points on the faces. Let's see, pause on this maybe. So grid and line. There's duplicate elements. I need to refresh myself with geometry nodes, but scale elements, duplicate elements. That sounds like what I need. In this case, just grid and mesh line. I guess just use instance on points. And scale the instance smaller and smaller. Let's see. Try to think index. Okay, index. And index goes into the scale. And then we need to reverse the index using math. So 1 minus index. Yeah. So we have this grid and stack of grid, and realize the instances, and then distribute some points on faces. And instead of doing it this way, we want pause on disk, density factor, seed, density minimum and maximum. We just try to arrange the points, and then in the end we just gonna use the cube and randomize. In the end we're gonna have points to scatter our cube to generate the pyramids. Yeah, that's the idea anyway. I think the points, I'll try to think of something. Set the position of the points. Can we snap the position of the points into a grid? Maybe using snap. Yeah, I guess this one is pretty close. I guess it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. at least for now. It's definitely a better way to do this, but yeah, this type of pyramid. It's pretty basic but interesting, fun way to. It's a fun little problem for you to try. So yeah, if you're using AI, I don't know, try to understand what's going on here. Maybe ask the AI, can you explain the code above? So the AI is usually it goes part by part. So it tells you what's going on. This is the cool part about the AI. It's actually doing it on the fly using all these millions neurons that it has. First, import BPY, dimension of the cube 5 by 5. Okay, the size of each cube 1 unit, number of row 5. And then, yeah, okay, this one is explaining what's going on. Loops through each row of the pyramid using for loop. Calculate the number of cubes in the row, simply the difference between grid X and the current. Okay. Calculate the offset of this row. It's getting a little bit complicated, maybe for your brain, for my brain as well. But finally, script add a cube to the scene. Its position is calculated in the nested for loop. Oh yeah, the last part is just generating the cube and position it. But this part is the most important, I guess. Have a read of this and hopefully you understand what's going on. But this one is generated procedurally. It's not perfect, like I said, but still pretty good. And this one generated using AI. It's creating only half of the pyramid, but also still it's pretty good. And maybe you can modify this is pretty close, right? You just need to modify the script and then maybe you get a proper pyramid. Maybe that's for the future live coding, but anyhow, hopefully this is useful, and I think the AI can be super useful. Sometimes you need to debug the code and make it more correct. It doesn't know what it's doing. It sort of know what it's doing, but sometimes it's kind of making it up on the fly. But yeah, that's a first example of how you use AI with Blender. There are many ways. There's probably like at least 100 things that you can do with AI and Blender, and then I try to make an example and how you can do it using geometry nodes as well. So that's pretty fun and interesting exercise to do. That's how you can learn. So hopefully you find this useful. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.